There we go. Thank you, everyone that has joined us. Welcome to Full Sail Partners Live. Today, we are on LinkedIn and YouTube. For those that I haven't met, I'm Sarah Ganella. I am partner at Full Sail Partners, and I oversee marketing and sales for the firm. Later this year, I'll actually be celebrating my 15th anniversary at the firm, and my path over the years grew from being a CRM consultant, which is today's topic. Today, I'm joined by Amanda Roussel, a senior CRM consultant at Full Sail Partners. Good afternoon, Amanda.
Hi there, Sarah. I'm excited to join you for today's live, and it's kind of fun that we're both on LinkedIn and YouTube today. So hi, everybody.
Yes. And this month actually marks Amanda's third year anniversary at the firm. So I'm excited to be able to present with her today. She assists firms with new CRM implementations, as well as helping firms take their CRM system to the next level using Deltek Vantage Point. One of the things I love about Amanda's consulting style is her patient and deliberate approach to helping her clients. Both of us previously worked in the AEC industry, which is a great advantage to our clients because we have been in their shoes, right, Amanda?
We have definitely been in our audience's shoes today. One thing I usually tell my clients is I've seen it done right and I've seen it done not so right. When first jumping into work out of college, I was very lucky to have landed a position that had an established and well thought out CRM use. And it was beautiful. And then I moved on to another firm and learned very quickly that not all processes and CRMs are created equal.
Yes.
It takes some manpower to do that. So
it does. So it's a much needed topic today. Today, we're going to be talking about best practices to roll out your CRM system. And even though our specialty is Deltek Vision and Vantage Point, today's conversation can apply to anyone that wants to learn how to overcome common challenges and pitfalls and discover best practices for training, user adoption, data quality related to CRM systems. So we have a whole host of things we're going to be talking about.
We do. And Sarah and I, we have a lot of ideas because this is what we do day in and day out, but we really want to hear from you guys too. So we spent time prior to today's conversation brainstorming on key topics that we really wanted to talk about and address when tackling a CRM rollout. But we want you to be interactive with us. So go ahead, ask your questions in the comments, add in your thoughts, share your advice. Let's make this as interactive as possible.
Great. And so with that, let's set the stage. Today's conversation will be about the rollout. This is after you have implemented, done implementation with your team. You've met, you've made decisions about fields, reports you want, how you've configured the system. So today we'll really focus on areas to help your firm have a successful rollout of your CRM system. So things to think about, to engage your team, drive a user adoption. And Amanda will also have a blog coming out tomorrow highlighting key tips on implementation. So be sure to check that out as well.
That's right. That's tomorrow.
It is.
One of the first topics Sarah and I discussed, and we have this conversation with clients a lot, is determining your rollout and training approach. It's already been implemented, but how are we going to push this out to all of our users? Sarah, I know you have a lot of experience with this. What are some things that our audience can keep in mind?
Yeah. So when you think about rollout or your training approach, a couple of different things to think about. So sometimes people will do train the trainer. So what is that? That is having a core group of individuals that will become the experts. And I recommend that all the time. So you have individuals that are the experts in, if you have multiple locations, they are the individuals that understand the system. And then they're training the rest of the staff. Sometimes you might also have the consultant join you as well, just for any other questions, but it's really important to have an individual that will take the lead, that is really understanding the system. But I've also done it in different ways as well. I've done where it's consultant led and also virtual as well as in person, even doing them virtual and in person. And that always adds a whole new type of challenges a part of it. So whenever you're thinking about rolling out when it comes to virtual and in person ends up being a lot easier, a lot simpler because you're having those one-on-one conversations. Virtual, which is what we're doing today, you're not getting that feedback. So when you're first doing virtual training, you have to understand, you have to allow a little bit more time for feedback to come in. And then if you also have people in person, you need to repeat the questions back as you're training. So if people are asking questions, repeating the question that was asked in person, and then answering the question. So there's a lot of nuance to doing things virtual. One of the things I would also recommend from a virtual perspective is encourage people to get on camera. It's best to be able to see people, to understand the crowd, the individuals that are asking the questions, to sort of emulate that in-person feeling as well. And then another approach is also hands-on versus lecture style. So are you going to do it where you're just presenting to them and presenting the topic, or are you going to do more of a hands-on type of rollout? So people are actually in the system. They might even have computers where you're taking them through. I can tell you from my perspective, sometimes doing both. First doing, this is how the system is set up. These are the things that are important to understand, but also making sure you also have a hands-on type of experience as well. So having both of those can be really helpful. Amanda, anything else that you think is important as you're thinking about the training approach with individuals?
I would add to that, there's not a one size fits all approach. And that's why you have options. So just kind of keep in mind what your internal audience is going to be and kind of make those decisions based on how they are going to receive the information and learn the best. And if you don't know, ask them.
Yeah.
They will tell you. But throughout each of those topics or options that you just described, Sarah, it's really about engagement. What is going to get those people most engaged?
Yeah.
And it could be a combination of 1, 2, or 5 of them.
Yeah, and a key thing you said is everybody learns differently. So even doing asking for feedback and saying, what are the best ways or how do you learn best? Whenever we bring individuals into our company, we also ask those types of things as well. Are you a person that just needs to jump in, learn the system? Do you need things in writing? Are you more of a graphical type person? So thinking about those things as well are super important. And that actually goes right into a question that I have for you, Amanda. You know, we've talked a little bit about the different styles of presenting training, but what have you seen that is successful related to materials that are provided and things to keep in mind while deploying the training?
Materials. Okay. So I know I get asked this a lot. Do you have a training manual that you can share with us? I don't, because it depends, right? So it's all situational based off of the different style you're going to present your training, what it is you're going to leave behind them with. But one thing I like to do is put myself in the end user's shoes. So like what would help them grasp the information and see the need to start using it? So one of the first things I like to say is keep in mind, you want relatable information in the database. Their clients, you want them in their database, right? So end users, we're human naturally. Okay, why am I going to go through the process of doing this? Like, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? And that sounds like I feel like it sounds like a very selfish question, but that's how a lot of human minds work. Okay. So how does this relate to your users' everyday work? what steps are you going to eliminate throughout their day to make this a seamless process and make it just really flow from start to finish? Documentation, I just threw out there that a lot of people ask for a training manual, and it truly doesn't exist because I've yet to meet anyone who has the time to read a training manual. And it's going to look different from firm to firm. So recommendations I see that work is cheat sheets, quick little snapshots with short definitions of where you put fields, what they mean, which ones are required. So whether you call it a cheat sheet or a quick guide, it could be a front and back of a printed paper or something that lives on your firm intranet. But also a lot of CRMs offer tooltips. In Vantage Point, it's called a tooltip. You get the little eye bubble next to a field, and you get to define what goes in there if you want to use it. So without having to reference anything externally while you're in the system, you can offer a tooltip to help guide the user what information goes where. Snapshots of saved searches, because you will have done your due diligence already and know what some common searches might be that your users might want to see. Don't make them start it from scratch. That would not be an efficient use of time for numerous people to do that. But find those common ones, save the searches, save the views of how it's most commonly going to be viewed. In addition to the kind of quick guide document, another thing we're seeing as a popular option is short videos. We're just in that mindset, right? Whether it's a reel, it's a story, it's a short video, it captures your attention for maybe 30 seconds. We don't have much longer than that, right? But you could go through and create a quick, here's how to create a new contact record. Here's how to create a new pursuit. Save it to the company intranet. Roll it up into onboarding. So you have a lot of options with that. And let's face it, it's going to be much easier if anything changes to update a really short video than to go modify a document.
And people are even adding comments agreeing with you. So what about recorded session? So yes, we absolutely agree with you. So keep the comments coming. And I would also say, Amanda, related to the recordings, we have a lot of short videos, so people should take advantage of those if they're on Deltek Vantage Point. But I'm sure that, you know, no matter what CRM system you're using, you might also have other videos that your provider provides as well. Yeah,
never underestimate the power of free resources at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And I know Full Sail, one of the reasons I landed here, I absolutely love the educational material that the firm has always put out there. That's just something the firm's always done. And working in the AEC industry, I relied on it. I loved it. So now that I get to be a part of it, that's pretty exciting because I know what an impact it can have on the audience that we have out there, whether it's our clients or not. And anyone can view it if they find that it would help in their processes. But whether it's documents, videos, tooltips, any of those things, a lot of us are marketers. So I'm going to say this kind of very broadly. You have to market. It's a marketing tool that you have to market as a marketer, right? So think of it as, how can I market this and get others to buy in to the concept, really? Socializing CRM amongst your end users, it just goes a long way. So people usually don't like surprises. So go ahead, get your users excited, engage them as much in the process as possible. And I do find things can evolve from there.
Yeah, and I would also add, Amanda, regarding marketing it, is to keep in mind that everyone doesn't always get the information the first time. So sometimes you might have to market it a second time or a third time or even the sixth or seventh time. Even internally, it was funny. We were having a conversation the other day and someone was like, I had no idea. And I'm like, how can someone have no idea that this is available? We've been talking about this for 2 years, but people don't. They're involved in their own thing. So, just because you've done it once, don't be afraid to do it umpteen million other times. People have to hear it's repetitiveness that will help them to understand why this is important. Say it in different ways. Marketing, thinking about marketing, your audience, how it is that they will take that information in and what's important to them. And so
very true. You're never done.
Exactly. So we've talked about the materials. Let's sort of move on to other things that we might consider. What about test groups or pilot groups? What about your experience with those individuals?
That's a great point. I'm a huge fan of test groups, pilot groups, whatever you prefer to call it, before rolling it out to the masses, because you don't want to implement the system, throw training guides at people, cross your fingers, jump in the lake, and hope for the best. Right? Let's test this out. It's implemented. It might not be 100%, and that's okay. Get it close. Prepare your materials and work with a test group, because they are going to have such amazing feedback on what parts work well, and they're going to have really good feedback on what doesn't work well. And then you can address those scenarios and modify as you need to. So I wouldn't, when you're working with a test group, I wouldn't choose everyone that has the same role, right? You want to get different groups represented to where each user group is part of the process. I think you'll be able to identify your cheerleaders within the firm, those people who are huge advocates for cleaner processes, your people who absolutely love technology. They're willing to jump in and be a cheerleader and have great feedback to provide to you. I don't often see this person get added yet, but it's becoming more of a thing, right? Prepare yourself for the naysayers, right? Some people just don't like change, and that's understandable. It might be a good time to include them in the process. Help get their buy-in, help them be a part of the solution and move forward from there, okay? They would test the system, and then ultimately you want those to be your CRM advocates. And I'm going to go back to a point Sarah shared earlier in the conversation. Whenever you're training users, this team of CRM advocates who were part of your pilot group could help with that. It's not just you up there or whoever's leading the efforts. You're including others in a variety of roles.
Yeah. And I think some of the things to keep in mind is that you're going to have individuals. They could be about 20% of people that are going to be your cheerleaders. If you don't have that, then we got bigger problems. But you're typically going to have about 20% that are your cheerleaders. You're going to have, about 50, maybe a little bit more that are individuals that are willing to take the next step, but they need a little bit more pushing. And then really you have a smaller group, like 10% to 20%, that tend to be the naysayers. And a lot of times those individuals, there may be nothing that you can do to really turn them around. But you need to be prepared for them. And the reason I say be prepared for them is that sometimes naysayers will be the individuals that want the project not to be successful because they don't want to be held accountable. They don't want to do things. So you have to be able to be prepared in your rollout, in your conversations. We've had situations, as an example, with naysayers that just want to take over the conversation. So just be prepared to take that information, put it on a, you know what? It sounds like maybe we need to spend some one-on-one time with you. I'm going to jot this down, so acknowledge what they're saying, but put it to the side, like on a parking lot list, or welcome that you have a separate conversation with them. So you have to manage those type of individuals. For the most part, you probably don't have that, but I have experienced that as I've done different types of rollouts. But really focus on the cheerleaders, getting those cheerleaders, the advocates, to be the people that are going to help evangelize it throughout the company. Thinking about, like I said, the different offices. Who do you have that's going to be the expert that people can ask questions to, so they can go back and have an individual, this is who you're going to go back to in your particular office. So those are the key things to think about. I think pilot groups and test groups are super important, because these are going to be the people that are going to help you to really deploy a system out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sarah, I'm trying to think, what other things do we want to keep in mind kind of with that test group and that next level?
Well, so there's two key things that I think that are super important to part of this. One is executives. Executives play a huge role, and the ones that I've seen that are most successful, they have either done like a video where they're explaining the benefits, or they're there in person explaining why this is important and what is the benefit to the company. So as an executive, it's not only important that you're taking the initial lead in explaining why it is this is important, because that's what your company needs to understand. Why am I asking you to do this extra work? How is this going to benefit me? How is this going to benefit the company? So that's super important. And then one of the things that I think is also important from an executive perspective is you have to do the work too. So you can't expect that other individuals are going to do things that you're not willing to do as an executive. You have to be a representative. You have to show why it is that it's important and do it too. That is where I've seen the biggest failure, is that executives are like, you need to do this, and they designate it to someone else. And I know, Amanda, you have stories where you've dealt with that as well, where an executive tried to give it to someone else. Do you want to tell a little bit about that story?
I will. I had a CRM implementation with a client, and they assigned a project manager on their side to kind of help oversee things and keep it moving. But that person wasn't engaged in CRM day to day. So they were there from a more so transactional standpoint. Yeah. And that changed. It ended up flipping to someone else who had more capacity to take it on their side. And the project moved along, but not at the pace and level of quality that it should have, right? And then I had a conversation with the executive, and we kind of talked about things, and he became the project manager. This thing took off immediately. Like, he was engaged in every session, and the other people in that bigger group on their side was so much more engaged once he became involved.
Yeah.
And that was just a huge, very solid example of executives getting involved, because people learn from leaders, right? It starts at the top. So that's been a huge thing to see.
If you find it important as a leader, and you show and you're demonstrating as an example, other people will see that it's just as important. And one of the other things that I think that is important when rolling out is, don't take too much on all at once. One of the things that I always like to give an analogy about is, think about a baby. A baby comes out, they start crawling, then they start standing, then they walk, then they're finally running. Sometimes we'll get individuals and they haven't even crawled yet. They're really not even rolling around. But yet they're like, I want to run, I want to sprint. And so you have to evolve as a company, and you can't just go from 0 to 100 in one fell swoop. So think about steps that you can take and how it is that you can continue to evolve as a company. Also think about the company and the environment. Your environment is also changing. So your business needs to adjust as well. And that means CRM as well. So keep in mind that this is a lot of times people think, oh, I've implemented CRM, we're rolling it out, we're done. And don't think of it that way. Think of it as an evolving system that is going to grow with you and change as your business changes, as trends change, as environments change. So I think that that's super important as well. And then also make sure you're inviting individuals. I think one of the other things that people tend to miss that's a very important thing to include is a feedback loop. So being able to get feedback from people, adjust, and realize that nothing is perfect. You're not going to be perfect the first time out. Let them know that this is an evolving environment, that you want their feedback and you want to take it in and understand how you can make it better. But explain to people that this isn't going to be the last time we're talking about CRM. And so even through the process, if you have a consultant, the consultant should be getting feedback from you, and you should be getting feedback from the consultant. And then also, how is it that you're going to get feedback from the users? So what is that mechanism of soliciting that feedback from them? How will you explain to them how they will give that feedback? And then how will you communicate back how you're adjusting or how you're listening to them and making those changes?
I like those points a lot. It's never done. It is very fluid. Like Sarah said, use the system, right? Don't wait to get to 100% because it's so fluid. No offense. Chances of you getting there are slim.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we do for a living, and we still improve our CRM processes on a regular basis. Here, you never cross it off the list. Just the target kind of changes a little bit. Onboarding new employees. Make sure CRM is covered in there. Business needs change. And another thing I find that people lose sight of, it's always a good time to share successes and wins. Even if it's on like one portion that you rolled out and people are using it effectively and it's making an impact, we tend to take for granted those things when it's working well, because the things that may not be working well wave really big to get our attention. But share those successes and wins. Like that's encouraged. I want you to recognize those things.
I love that. And Amanda, what I would like to do now is maybe take some questions that I've seen pop up in the audience, and then maybe we can end things with other suggestions, other things that we know are important to keep in mind. We sort of talked about the key highlights or the key things, but there are also other things like the sharing the successes and wins that we can also share. So let me just take a look. So there was one that came in. Do you need to have updated data for the test groups? And so that was when we were talking about the test groups. So I think what she's asking is when maybe a preview environment or things like that, that they're looking at, do you feel it's important to have updated data?
To some extent, yes, but the functionality I find would still be the same.
Right.
For testing. So, I mean, do you want 2-year-old data? Probably not. Something within the last 6 months. Don't quote me on these time frames, but generally nothing huge has changed within a firm to where that would limit their testing capabilities.
Well, when you think about a rollout, it's more about what people are going to do versus the data. Like, do I know how to add a firm? Do I know how to add a contact? Do I know how to add an opportunity? So for me, the data is less important. It's more about, do you know how to create things? Because that's really what people need to know, is how to create things. So for me, we could start with a blank database. I don't care, because I want to see, can you do these things and add this information in here? But yes, on certain things, it can be helpful to have updated information. Let me come over here. So let me click on this one. Let's see what this one is.
Lori had a good one.
Yeah. Do you recommend sticking to one topic at a time for training? Great question. What are some examples of topics to cover in one training? One on dashboards, one on contacts. It feels like information overload to do too much at one time. We deal with this even with implementation. So, Amanda, what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, it is very possible to do way too much at one time, right? So think of the time that you spend implementing CRM. You're going to want to roll it out in more digestible pieces, right? So maybe not one topic at a time, but maybe looping in a few topics at a time. Because, like, for example, firms, contacts, and activities, in my mind, they're very integrated together. Like, you could do that as a group to where you're tackling a few topics without overwhelming one particular training session. Pursuits and projects, and there's ways, and consultants on our team, we like to help clients figure this out. Like, what's the best grouping that's going to make the most impact as you do roll it out?
Yeah, even in the implementations, as we're doing an implementation, one of the things I always ask people is, do you want virtual trainings or do you want on site? And I bring up this exact topic. I'm like, 16 hours, 2 days of me throwing everything at you and us doing things can be overwhelming. So that's why we actually recommend doing things in pieces, so you can have time to think about those things. Think about that with your users as well. So allow them time to go do things, come back, that feedback. What questions do you have? So that's also super important when you're doing the rollout, is go do things, get feedback. How is this going? Are there other things we missed that we didn't address? So I think doing too much, I agree with you, it can be information overload. And people, especially these days, even I'm thinking about like TikTok or Twitter. What is the short little ways that we can help educate people? So that's why we're starting to do even shorter and shorter things to help people. So think about that as well. Even if it's a small little feature, you're giving them, piecemealing that type of information. There was another question that came in. What testing time frame do you recommend? I feel like that's completely different for every single firm. I think that it also depends on the complexity of what it is you're trying to accomplish. So for this one, for me, I'm not sure I could answer this with a solid time frame. What do you think, Amanda?
You're right. Again, it's another situational thing, and I think it depends on the time frame of the bigger project too. Sarah mentioned the word complexity, and I'll throw out there an additional word: capacity. This is on top of like an everyday workload piece. It's not like many people have implement CRM like in their daily function. But once you do have a testing time frame, one thing I would recommend, make sure it's happening regularly, right? 15 minutes a week, not going to get you very far.
Right.
10 minutes a day, you might get some results, because then you're practicing it enough to notice like, okay, this did get easier as I go through muscle memory, and this part is just clunky and we need to rethink this.
Funny comment. So asked, how did you know my data is 2 years old? Must have been either you've worked with this person or you're just used to people coming to you with 2-year-old data.
You are not alone. I will say that. I do work with them, but I didn't even put that together as my answer coming out that way. So
That's awesome. All right. So if you guys have other questions, feel free to add those. So Amanda, let's talk a little bit more about other things that we might consider as people are rolling out, other things that they really should think about. You touched upon this, and I thought someone had previously, let me find this comment. Oh yeah, here it is. This, you briefly touched upon it. What can we do now to prepare for future training for onboarding new employees that come on board after the rollout? This was a topic you and I also identified that needs to be addressed. So what is it that people can do to prepare for future training for onboarding new employees?
You want CRM training as part of the onboarding process. Coordinate with HR, make it a thing, and get a spot on there.
Yeah.
Now, does it have to be a multi-hour training session? No, it could be watch this series of videos, practice doing this. People come to your firm, they might have some contacts that need to go in. Well, what better way to practice than to actually put them in, right? So keep it part of the onboarding conversation. That would be my biggest recommendation.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's important to your company, it should be a part of your onboarding. And I can tell you, even internally, we have an actual process where everybody that comes on board, we work with them to set up their LinkedIn profile, because we're consultants. And so we are working with individuals. So we find that it's important to work with them and getting things set up. So if things are important, you're going to have those videos. We do a feedback process with our clients. So we actually have a part of our onboarding people to understand the feedback process and getting feedback from clients, understanding how their project is going. So if things are important, you should have videos. You should have time set aside. You're working with HR. They know that this is a priority. It may not be the HR person doing it. It might be connecting them with someone else. Like, what are the expectations on timesheets and expense reports? All of those things that are important for people to know. And a lot of times we just throw stuff at them or throw them into the position and oh yeah, your manager should handle that. and the manager doesn't, unless you have a succinct list like, hey, check, these are the things you should be doing. They don't think about those things half the time. And so let's see if there is any other questions that had come in. I don't see anything, but Amanda, we had talked about some other things. Maybe we could talk a bit about, so some of the other things that we had out is talking about using your system, promoting it, and also showing them in meetings. So as an example, as people are going through those weekly meetings related to CRM, I'm expecting you to update stuff. Well, why not just get into it and show the system and how it is? Maybe something's not updated. So in your meetings, I know you've done this as well.
Yeah. You can't expect others to use it if it's not going to be your source of truth as well. So I find, and that's kind of the marketing game with it too, right? You're showing it, you're using it, you're living and demonstrating the benefits of using it. And when it is well managed, oh my goodness, the accountability and transparency is it's just so impactful, right? Yeah. So whether it's pursuit data, project data, client data, when you can use it in real time, and if someone's like, oh wait, that just changed yesterday, I just haven't gone in, change it in real time, done. No one had to send an email. No one had to log back in and do it. It's just done.
Yeah. So another topic that I find is very much overlooked is also the QC aspect. So as you're rolling out, one of the things we always talk about on the implementation side of the house as well is who's responsible for entering this data. Who is responsible for making sure that it's added in correctly, and who's responsible for making sure that things are maintained. So a part of your rollout, that data cleanup, is also a very important topic to really think about, and how it is you're going to maintain things. I also think it needs to be, as things are being added in, how is that information actionable? So as an example, I had a client that was added to this company. I didn't know that this new person had joined this particular firm. I ended up missing it. And they were like, it's been a year. I hadn't even heard from you. And so I actually implemented a new process, a part of that. So every time a new person is added into our system, I have an individual that is sending out a welcome message to that person saying, hey, you have been added to our system. Just wanted to welcome you, that you're a part of our family now. And then if it's an executive, she's also asking them that, would you like to have a conversation? We'd like to invite you to have a conversation with one of our executives. So I took that as an opportunity to know the new people that are coming in, but also used it as a business development reason of making sure that I know the new people that are being added, as well as making it a marketing and BD effort of inviting them to have a conversation. So think about those actionable things related to data cleanup or data entry, and how those things can also impact your business.
And that situation you just described, Sarah, that gives you a head start, because you're able to be on the proactive side of things, not the reactive side of things. And I think that's when you're using one CRM platform, you're going to get that benefit. Of the ability to go proactive with it. So,
and as you start to connect these with other systems like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact or a HubSpot, or you're starting to connect beyond, you're walking, you're starting to run. This is where I would consider you being fully engaged in a CRM system. Now you can start to connect it with other systems. You got to think about the rollout of those things. Now your system is changing. So now what valuable information can you get from that other system as well? So for example, one of the other ways that we know is people are bouncing. Emails are bouncing. So it's now educating us or helping us to clean up our database. So as you start to connect other systems, think about your rollout of, now how is this evolving? I'm now connecting it to another system. How is this insightful? How am I also going to make sure these two systems are communicating and I'm keeping that data clean between those systems? And so anything else, Amanda, you think is important for people to keep in mind as we're doing a rollout?
One thing I like to see, another thing I'd like to see, maintenance plans. So kind of, Sarah just described workflows we have in place, and workflows are something it's very underutilized at many firms, but very cool, can streamline some efforts. Data's going in. Just because it goes in doesn't mean it's 100% correct. So whether it's a contact list that you view on a monthly basis of all new contact records that went in that month, right? It's not something you need to do every day. It may not be something you need to get a notification email about. But you have a regular set of eyes on data that goes in. So contacts, they go in and then you really don't visit it until you need to. So I like to see them kind of maintenance reports on firms and contacts, so you can address things and tweak them as they go along. Even if it's forgetting the M on .com in an email address, it's not going to hit their inbox, right? So just use something like that to ensure data integrity.
Perfect. I got another question that's come in. Do you find it works best to have a centralized data entry person, or at least someone who verifies cleanup and cleans up the data instead of holding individual users to high standards of data entry? We're using that approach to reduce barriers to entry. What are your thoughts on this? I have very specific thoughts on this particular topic.
I have some specific thoughts. I will say it depends, but for a majority of firms, I'm going to say majority, why not spread the independence? If someone has to put their fingertips to the keyboard to type something for someone else to enter, that is now a duplicative effort. So I generally like to see it pushed out, but then have monitoring eyes on it to keep it clean. That's my high level answer. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm the same way. So I want to enable, or I want to empower people to do it themselves. I don't want that they have to go through a particular person to do things. But on the same token, I also want to make it easier. So I agree with Michelle as far as finding ways to reduce barriers. So one of the things, for example, we even do internally with our company is if it's one person, one contact, come on, you can add that person into the system. But if you have like a group of people, we have an individual, we're like, we understand you're busy, you got a lot of stuff going on. We have an individual, you send it to that person, they will make sure it gets in. For our lead process, that's a little bit different. There are specific individuals that are responsible for that, and then pushing it and making it a company once it's qualified, things like that. So there are specific individuals. So, but I do agree with what you said in here as far as cleaning up the data. You got to have someone that's responsible. So, you know, companies, for example, accounting cares about it, contacts, marketing cares about it. So sometimes sharing the love and who's responsible for verifying the information is also super important as well. And so I love that question.
That was a good
one. So Amanda, I'm going to throw out a question that hasn't come in that I have seen more and more these days. And I'm curious, what do you think about gamification related to getting people to use CRM? I've seen more and more of that over the years. And I know you and I talked about it a little bit. And so just to clarify, what is gamification related to CRM? It is providing a way that individuals, it's sort of like you can do it points, like some people get so many points, or you get, you're competing with someone to do things. What are your thoughts about gamification related to CRM?
I think it can be very effective, and it might not be something that reaches 100% of people in your firm, but I'd say you're going to have a good percentage who love a challenge. Mm-hmm. And we do challenges at work, even if it's number of steps, right? Mm-hmm. That was a fun one. We did even LinkedIn contacts. But once you're in the system and you're really trying to promote the use of it, have a challenge, whether it's a scavenger hunt, if you find all the items that were on the scavenger hunt list, your name goes in a hat for a gift card, or you get some special perk. It doesn't, I don't think it has to be expensive. Right. It just has to be engaging, and it's any kind of challenge.
Yeah. And you'll have individuals that just won't be interested in it, but it can be like a bingo, like we're going to do something. And as you do something, you have to enter a client, you have to enter a contact. And so this could even be a part of your rollout and making it fun, having a bingo card. All right, the first person to get on their card, the things that go across, you win a prize. It's something like that. I think that if you make it fun, make it engaging, it can be effective. I think where it's been ineffective whenever I've seen it is where, I don't know, it's not really fun. It feels more like a task, and people just aren't really finding the value. And sometimes you'll just have individuals that just aren't into those things anyways. We do things even, internally with different things. And you have some people that are engaged and you have others that aren't. And so it's just finding more people that you can engage in this particular topic, or getting them to do more or learn more. That's really ultimately, I think you need to keep in mind. That's the purpose of it. And so Gail just said that gamification idea just made my day. And so, yes, Gail. So we'd be interested to hear how it is that you end up using this idea internally. Kate also said challenges are the best. So Kate loves challenges.
And that it really goes into marketing it to your users, like treat your end users like your client in this situation. And how can you engage them?
Yep.
And get them using the tool. So
Yeah.
it's all in support of that.
And I think, as we start to wrap up today's session, I just want to circle back to one other thing that you had mentioned, Amanda, that it really had to do with sharing your successes. I think it's also important to share that information. If you're going to do gamification, make it public. Congratulations to so-and-so, or making sure that you are also letting people know that did the work of the rollout, giving them a kudos for all of the hard work that they did. And so sharing with the company the successes, sharing as people have been embracing it, making sure that you're communicating and showing the successes, showing the wins, even if it's small increments along the way. I think those are not appreciated as much as they really should be. What I have found is people want to be acknowledged for the hard work that they've done. So even just the executive calling them out, thanking them for the things that they've done, I mean, you can't do that enough.
I would agree with that. Share the wins with your internal team, push it out, give it the exposure it deserves, because it really can help your firm grow into the next thing.
Yeah.
And you're able to take the proactive approach.
Well, I think we're starting to get to the time. I don't see any other questions that anybody has for us. So I'd like to go ahead and roll off for today. But one of the things as a final is, and I know CRM roll out. We're doing our wrap now. One of the last things I wanted to say is be sure to check out Amanda's blog that is coming out tomorrow on CRM implementation. So be sure to check that out. We do have one last question. So does CRM by phone encourage usage? Ooh, that's an interesting question.
I think that one depends on the user, right? Like if they're app happy and just want to plug stuff in on the go, it's another way to get data in. So whether you're using Outlook Connect or the mobile app, or Vantage Point on the web, people will find their preference.
Yeah, I have to say with Deltek Vantage Point, one of the things that I love about, and it's specific to that product, is I really like the Outlook Connect with Vantage Point. I had, that information over to the side, quickly seeing all of the activities, the projects, the information. So that in itself has made usage, even though it's not necessarily on the phone, it's still in an application that people are using day in, day out. I do love the phone usage as well. So being able to, as I'm out and about, pulling that information up, checking out things related to who it is that I've just met. Oh yeah, that's what's going on with that person. And so I'm just gonna pop up some other things that have come. Lori said, love the bingo card idea. Great, Lori, let us know how you use that. And Kimberly, so glad you joined us. She says, great job, ladies. I enjoyed listening today. And then Lindsay, who is behind the scenes today, she says she loves having the app on at conferences so she can look up who she just talked to. I do that all the time.
same.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So to wrap up, here is the link where you can find Amanda's blog that publishes tomorrow. And so if you're not following us, you can go to fullsailpartners.com and just simply go to blog, or you can go to /FSP blog to find us. So I just wanted to thank everyone that joined us today. And Amanda, I loved presenting with you today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. I love the crowd we had. Y'all were great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions. And we'll go ahead and wrap up things today. And we will also this will be published. And so if for whatever reason you have a colleague that wants to see it after the fact, they can check it out now on YouTube and LinkedIn. So thank you guys so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.